This video was created to demonstrate the Scattergraph and the least squares regression method for analyzing mixed costs. Please refer to the sidebar under References on the Learning Manager to obtain a copy of the question used in this demonstration. The question begins like this. The Glengarry Motel in Truro, Nova Scotia has accumulated records of the total wage cost and occupancy days over the last year. An occupancy day represents a room rented out for 1 day. The motel's peak season is summer, with another in the winter for ski season. Using the data for Glengarry Motel in question, estimate the fixed costs of wages per month and the variable costs using the Scattergraph method and the least squares regression method. With these two methods, I recommend that you don't ever prepare them by hand. If you ever remember graphing from your school days, it's very time-consuming. Spreadsheet software is excellent for creating graphs. All you have to do, the biggest challenge in using spreadsheets for graphing is selecting the correct data that you want to appear in the graph. So I'm quickly going to put in the data that I want for this question. I'm going to start with the month. I'm going to put the heading in there. And then I'm going to type in the month January, and Excel has this nice copy feature where you can just click on the fill handle and copy down to the month that we want. We want to go from January to December. Saves me some typing, I really like that. Then we're going to put in the occupancy days, and we'll type those numbers in quickly. I'm going to increase the width of this column. Then I'm going to put in or type in the wage cost. Make sure that you can type much faster than I. The most time-consuming part of graphing using a spreadsheet program is actually getting the data in the spreadsheet. There we go. Okay, now what I'm going to do is highlight the data that I want to use in the graph. And I'm going to highlight the label for those numbers in addition to the numbers themselves. Once I have the data highlighted, I'm going to click on the Insert tab, and then I'm going to go to the Charts section and find the Scattergraph. If you click on the little arrow by the Scattergraph, you'll find that some of the Scattergraphs have lines. We don't want lines, we're going to use just the markers. I'm going to click on that one, and it selects or creates the graph that I'm looking for. Now I'm just going to make this graph a little bit bigger so we can see it. And you'll notice that all of the points on the line are taken from the information we put in, with wage costs being on x-axis and the occupancy days being on the y-axis. Now, once we have the data graphed with this method, all we do is place a line on this graph so it's representative of all the points, not just the highest and the lowest points. Usually there's an equal number of points that fall above the line and fall below the line. But I found this neat little tool with Excel. When you go to the Graphing tab, you can actually get it to draw the line for you, which is a very nice feature because if I drew a line, it might, that's one of the disadvantages of using a Scattergraph is there's still some room for interpretation of the data when you're drawing that line. So we're going to use Excel to do that, and you go to the charting tool, and you're going to click on the analysis, and we're going to click on trend line, the little arrow under trend line, and we're going to put a linear trend line in here. So there's our trend line that you put on the graph. And with the Scattergraph method, once you have the line drawn, if you extend the line to where it crosses the x-axis, that's the fixed cost component of the wage cost. The slope of the line represents the variable cost of the wage cost. Once you have the fixed cost, we can calculate the variable cost by subtracting the fixed cost from the total cost and dividing by the number of units of one of the points. But again, with spreadsheet software, the most accurate method for separating mixed costs is the least squares regression method. It's a more objective and precise method because the line isn't placed using visual representation. It uses mathematical formulas to place the line, and that's really what Excel did when it placed this linear line for us. The other really nice thing that Excel does for us under the analysis tool, if I click the trend line and then go down to more trend line options, some more options appear for our trend line, and you can actually display the equation on the chart. Click that, select that, and close. You can see the equation. So the equation is already put on the chart for us. We know that this part of the equation is our fixed cost, and the slope of the line is our variable cost. When using the regression method, it's important to analyze the calculation for what we call the R-squared value. This value represents how much of the data is represented by the variation of the number of points. If the R-squared value is really high, as in close to 100%, it's considered a reliable formula to use in your analysis. If the R-squared value is low, then you probably don't want to rely on the data for making decisions. Again, if you click under Analysis and go to Trend Line and More Options, you can also display the R-squared value on the chart. And if I close this, you'll see that the R-squared value is very close to 100%. It's 99.66%. Therefore, this formula that we use for separating variable and fixed costs is very, very reliable. I wouldn't suggest that you try the Scattergraph or the least squares regression method if you are not using spreadsheet software. The formulas for least squares is very cumbersome, and it can be done really, really quickly using Excel.